Hello everyone, my name is Ryan from Golden Valley Reptiles, and this is the Gecko Talk podcast. Today we have a special guest, George from Golden Valley Reptiles. How are you, George?
Hey, how's it going, Ryan? I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great myself. How have you been with all of COVID, just kind of doing that with the hobby and all?
Just getting through it, hopefully we're in the last stages, but just kind of, keeping safe and healthy and, try to be good,
Yeah,
not go out too much.
Yeah. Hopefully it will clear up soon, but...
Yeah, getting back to the regular routine and all that, with the shows and just being out there with many other breeders,
Yeah. Yeah, I miss the shows too, because, you get to go out there, you're going to meet all the new people.
Yeah,
but
well, not just new, but I just,
Yeah, you get to see people that you've
hobby,
seen.
Just being out there with everybody and sharing your passion and all that.
Yeah.
So, that's always something I look for when I go out and vend and all that, and just the traveling part, is,
Yeah.
getting a little fresh air, from Fresno.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit it off with the questions then.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, how did you get into the leopard gecko hobby?
So originally, it was never a plan to become a leopard gecko breeder, like many of us. We acquire a few leopard geckos, and that just kind of sets the fuel on to, your projects and stuff like that. But I actually had a bearded dragon before I had leopard geckos. So, I had a bearded dragon, which I bred, and that was pretty cool. And then I ended up getting, throughout that whole period, I ended up getting some leopard geckos, and they ended up being a male and female. So those ended up breeding, and that's kind of like how it started. That was in 2011, and if I was able to do bearded dragons, even though it was never a big scale, just like a pairing,
Yeah.
It's still very different from a leopard gecko, way more care,
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the UVs and all that, more constant feeding, more mouths to feed too.
Yeah, and they're omnivores too, so it's probably more expensive for their diet and stuff too.
Yeah, so a little bit, in general, a little bit more pricier, for bearded dragons. But yeah, so it was never intentional. It's just I love the reptiles, and I just happened to have a bearded dragon, and my very close friend actually, he had a male and I had a female bearded dragon, so we kind of did a little breeding, between us two, and then that's what during that whole time I ended up acquiring some leopard geckos, and that ended up being a male and female, and that kind of started the whole kind of keeping reptiles in a little reptile room, and I watch YouTube and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of grew to become more than just, just having a little reptile room or just having a pair of leopard geckos, to what Golden Valley Reptiles is right now.
That's awesome. So, when you first, I guess, started with the pair, were they just normals or
Yeah. It was just normal leopard geckos.
Yeah.
It was from our local pet store here in Fresno, and it was just something that it was kind of lucky. No, not lucky, but funny thing is they were doing this little reptile event in the late evening where they opened up and they had specials on leopard geckos and all kinds of different reptiles, not just leopard geckos. But so I ended up going and ended up getting a pair. Well, just two babies actually, not even a pair. They just were babies, and I already knew from watching videos and stuff like that, some morphs, but I wasn't really looking into morphs. I just wanted to have two leopard geckos because they look very simple, and I was like, well, I have a 20-gallon, so if anything, I'll just split them off if they're male and female. But they end up being, I'm sorry, if they were both males, but they end up being male and female. So that kind of and they just kind of started producing by themselves. They're not super difficult to breed.
Yeah.
And they're very prolific. So and then the whole morph thing started after. I was like, okay, well, once I did that. That's when I started looking more into the morphs, and I didn't really get into the high-end morphs until late 2013, coming into the 2014 season. that's kind of started like really getting into the higher end actual lineages and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, let's get on to the second question then.
Yeah.
All right. So, for the second question, how did you get established in, the leopard geckos, establishing your name and etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, like I was mentioning, it was never really about like becoming a breeder. It's more like a passion. So I mean, acquiring these two geckos, it kind of fell off the start of the passion. I ended up getting 2012. I ended up getting a raptor, a tangerine tremper, a blazing blizzard, and a little bell. So I had like a couple pairings going on for the 2013 season, and that kind of just drove off to what it is today. That was kind of like dipping in my feet in the morphs, and even then in early 2012, I would talk to Marshall McGinnis of Golden Geckos, John of Gecko, and I was watching Sassobek's videos, Matt Sassobek. I mean, that kind of, got me into the information of the morphs and stuff like that. I'll go Google stuff, and my first actually high-end leopard gecko was a Golden Gecko Sunglow. So, that started off the whole thing with the orange stuff that you see now in my Instagram and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The orange geckos that kind of become descendant of that Golden Gecko Sunglow male that I got acquired in 2013. But it was a slow start, a slow growth. I was never, like I mentioned, wanted to become a breeder or anything. It was just more like, okay, I like this. I'm gonna continue doing this. I'm gonna acquire some nice high-end geckos. So I already had like a few morphs, but they weren't high-end. They were just like from local breeders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that kind of just drove off and dipped my feet into all the morphs in 2013, and then 2014 was kind of like my big actual high-end quality season, and from there on it kind of spun off to what I am now. It's just like a growing process where I've been little by little every year I've been establishing my name, myself, and becoming to what I am today, and with the experience and all that. So it's something that it grew over the years. It's definitely not something that it became overnight or in a year or two. It took its time, and that's something that I always encourage to like new breeders or somebody that wants to get into breeding. You can't really establish yourself within the year or two. It takes a little longer. And especially if you want to do it correctly and be ethical and just have good practices. We're always going to have our goods and bads and our little failures and stuff like that, but it's always a learning process as far as growth and becoming the breeder we want to be or we want to become. It's not something that you become overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you said that, because like you get all these new people coming in, which is really awesome too. But then you'll get these people that think that they're gonna become 0 to hero within like a year. But
and it's something like that. Like I always we talked plenty of times, and even then, the advice I give you, it's always something like something to work for, or just establishing yourself. Something that you work with what you have, and not to get too big headed or overwhelmed, or something that you can't support, or too big on your plate, because then you're gonna be with those issues where you're gonna get unmotivated to keep breeding or keep doing. If it's a real passion, you're gonna keep going. And establishing yourself and growing as you're going over the years.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. And like people ask for like, what do you recommend for like what do you want to breed? It's the same answer that when anytime asked me, I think everyone answers it the same way. It's just work with what you want to work with.
And then there's been opportunities for me to get into something that's new, or kind of like I mentioned this a couple times to other friends, like being a bandwagon, something that's brand new, or but I never been like that. I always been like, okay, they're nice, but I'm gonna stick to what I have here, and I'm gonna continue working on the things I have working here. And I do get fresh new lineage in almost every year, but it's nothing like too crazy. Stuff that I want to work and keep working with, or becoming more established, or improving the lines and stuff like that. Not necessarily a whole new morph or a whole new genetic lineage or something like that. It's more like, okay, well, if I can add this, this trait or this, gecko, I'll be able to, because, I can support it with what I have here. It won't be entirely different.
Yep. That's well said. All right, let's move on to the third question. All right, so for the third question, how did you branch off into morphs that you wanted to work with? I know that you mentioned you getting stuff from Marcia, of course, but was that like after buying stuff from her? Is that when you started to realize like this is what kind of the direction that you wanted to go as far as like morph wise and lineage wise, or?
So I was in a way privileged at a reptile show. I already had talked to Marcia McGinnis, and I was already inquiring a sungle from her. Mm-hmm. But I was still very privileged to have Steve Sykes, Ron Tremper, and Marcia McGinnis Golden Gate Geckos, etc., and Ron Trempers, all in one show. So I got to see all of their stuff, all of their not the full on, but for the most part, a good majority of their morphs they worked with at that time in 2013. So by far for me was that Sungalow from the Golden Gate Gecko line. So that was always an honor, privilege to have. So that I got that into my I was still not Golden Valley Reptiles at this time, but that's something I acquired, and from there on I just kind of started building. It's always like that objective to have a full orange gecko or a very high quality tangerine orange gecko. So I had the Golden Gate Gecko line, which really helped out with all that, and I ended up getting a female later on, and then I started throwing some blood in there. So that kind of spun off with the orange geckos. But around that time as well, in 2014, after that season was end, I always admired the Tangelo, the Tangerine Tremper stuff, the high contrast. So my budget wasn't the best, So those guys, when you're working with high quality geckos, they're pricey. They're not gonna be cheap.
Yeah.
So that kind of spun off to like, oh, what if I can produce a Tangelo, but my own version, So that's kind of what it's been up to. What today the high contrast is, trying to kind of recreate my own version of the Tangelo, even though I'm far from naming it my lineage or anything like that. But that was the reason why I started doing a high contrast project, because I really admired the Tangelos and the orange and the contrast, So I was kind of trying to duplicate something similar to that. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, it started off as being nice oranges and the bands, and kind of spun off the last couple of years to the jungles and to the stripes. So that's kind of what I've been working with the last 2 years, trying to keep that stripe, that jungle form going, and of course, having to keep most of the high contrast in there, because the high contrast name gets contradicted a lot, it could be high contrast to you, but for me, it's not high contrast. So it's still in that, somebody's opinion on whether it's a high contrast or not. But like I said, it's more like a project to keep that high contrast, and that's what I was working for when I started the high contrast, and that's kind of what I've been kind of known for lately. Tangerine Trempers, high contrast, and that's been pretty cool actually.
Yeah. I personally, I think you have the best high contrast stuff around, but
yeah.
I think that's what you're mainly known for now. How you're starting, I think what you've been posting recently, it kind of seems like you're getting your groundwork now, and it seems like this kind of seems like your own thing now, almost like you're almost there to be calling it your own line.
Yeah, well, for me, like I was mentioning, I still don't claim that, and
yeah, and I respect that.
I believe I'm maybe another 3 years if I were to work on it. I did add a red diamond in there that I acquired from John Gecko Ball last year. So I threw that into my high contrast. Not the whole project, but a few females. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I had a good enough male last year. So I was like, man, I need a good male. So I acquired that that red diamond male, which I threw into some females, and it gave some really nice results. But at the same time, I kind of don't want to keep that male going on with the same high contrast lineage, because then it's going to contradict itself with the red diamond as well. Like I don't want it to get mixed up in there too much. So it was just something to have a high end male, but not really to actually put it in there into the whole high contrast project, not to breed to a lot of females. It was just one or two females that I had really, really nice that I felt like I didn't have a good male. But then at that time when I purchased the red diamond male, I had a little baby male that he was a little runt. He was really just a typical tangerine tremper, possibly high contrast. And that's what you see today now that I'm posting, which is I call him El Capitan. He ended up establishing into a very different looking male than what I have right now. And at that time, I didn't think I was going to have a male like that, So he did breed to a couple, one female actually. And I have a bunch of holdbacks from him right now. So, I mean, that's another little side off thing that, from the red diamond to that male, So, I mean, like I said, I don't want to throw in the red diamond too much into the project just because I want to keep it separate. I don't want people be like, oh, well, that's red diamond, or, because it has its own look. But at the same time, like, I needed a nice male, and I got that red diamond, which he produced really nice. But I'm gonna be very strict on that little side thing with that red diamond, and that really influenced it a lot into my actual high contrast that I have going on. But I mean, that was really cool to work with too, the red diamond stuff. So I mean, that's kind of very exciting, and we'll see what that goes on there. But it's not something that's gonna be very big. It's just gonna be something that I have a little side thing going on. And as far as the high contrast too, I have like a bold tangerine stuff. Bold tangerine tremper stuff that I'm working with. That I acquired a bold tremper a couple years ago, and I threw it into the high contrast, and it kind of gave me like this little chocolatey looking high contrast male that I post as well. So that was really cool about that, So I have a couple of holdbacks for him for next year because he didn't breed, and then I have my tangerine tremper different side project as well with the afterline, which I acquired from Golden Gate Geckos as well. When I acquired Golden Gate Sunglow, I acquired some Raptors, so I kind of want to bring those back because I mean those were lost a long time ago when Marshall McGinnis was retiring. So I've kind of been working with those very secretly, and I've kind of been line baiting them a little bit. So that's going to be really cool to bring those out maybe next year. If I produce enough. But I mean, that way I have like little things to pick off to the high contrast tangerine tremper stuff, and I can kind of like make it all together in one. As far as the line breeding goes, because I mean, you can't just breed all the time sibling to sibling,
Yeah,
it's different, So my establishment has been like 3 different little side projects, which eventually will kind of go into one main thing. Where I mean, I'm still gonna have the little identities, but I mean, the whole thing is still in the works on my lineage if I ever get there, because I don't even know if I'm gonna get there. It might just be just tangerine trempers high contrast, like I've been naming them lately, and it might not be an actual name, but I mean it's cool and fun and very appreciated that I've been kind of known a little bit for that now. The high contrast.
It's not, but you have a good group too. So it seems like that since you have all that lineage broken down, and that you have all the crosses to it too, I think eventually you'll start, seeing some stuff that's going to be looking different.
That's pretty much what takes up probably good, maybe almost half of what I have here. That high contrast project.
Yeah.
Close to half of what I breed here. And it just gives me very different results. I mean, I got bandits, I got bandits, like regular band geckos, and then I got the jungles, and then I got the stripes, So I mean, and that's very cool, they have the different variations, keep me not from having the same thing all the time, but as far as like offering when it comes to selling, have your jungles and stripes with that one always, they're very eye catchers, but then I have your really nice regular plain banded high contrast, so that's really cool as well. But that's something of more of my bigger projects here. I do have some nice wine yellow bow stuff that I'm working with. and
and
blood Gecko genetics. That's why I was kind of like a slightly a little bit bigger group as well.
and then I know that you have some subspecies stuff too. Do we do we want to go into the next question so we could go about the subspecies stuff too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I guess that will go into our last question. How did you get into subspecies?
So back when I was acquiring geckos, I actually did acquire a few subspecies crosses, not full subspecies.
Mm-hmm.
So I acquired a Mac Fascio from Marcia McGinnis that I added to my bow stuff. So that went really well with the bow gene and the bow wine yellows. So that the bow wine yellows is really interesting, very unique looking, very eye-catching, and then with you add the fascio, it gave some really strong genetic results, it just very springed off most of my bow stuff that I have today. So I added that. Later on in 2017, I added a Afghanicus cross Tangerine Tremper Afghan cross.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives some really cool stuff, I don't have that female anymore, but that kind of established in a way too in the beginning of my high contrast Tangerine Tremper stuff. So that was really cool to work with, and just recently, I added this year, I added a male Afghanicus, and then I added a female fascialis to throw back into the gene pool, into my bows. And then the Afghan has little side stuff that I want to do with, but it's mostly to just have that, that genetic wild type. Because I once you start being in a little bit higher scale, even if it's, I don't consider myself high scale, but just like more into the breeding and getting into the higher genetics, you have to have some subspecies laying around because it's very useful and everything. So it really helps out with the whole genetics and just like keeping your lineage strong and not too much inbreeding as well. And so I acquired those this year. So back in 2018, I had the opportunity, thanks to my friend Dylan from Gecko Labs, I acquired a fuscus from him. So I had that from him in that was 2017. So I had that from him. I had it growing up, and then he wanted to continue more breeding into them and having a little bit more established group. So I offered him to send her back. So that's where she's been at the last couple of years. But I'm gonna be acquiring her back in the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the holidays. To get that in here, and then I end up acquiring a fuscus female from John Gecko Boa. And I end up, getting that going on too. So I'm hoping to have some males, sometime next year for them, So having a little group, and then I have a Haruiki right now. So I'm just building up on those Eulefras, the Eulefras fuscus and the Haruiki. So I'm hoping to, maybe breed them next year. But we'll see. Because males are a little bit harder to come by, so. That's always in something else.
Yeah, the males are also pretty pricey too. Like
they're not cheap.
$700 to like $1,000.
Not everybody has a good success. So it's something that I've been wanting to dip my feet into. I ever since I actually acquired that female from Gecko Labs. So they're very interesting, very different looking. And I'll post them here and there. So I'm waiting to see what I can do with them. I'm not gonna get too crazy. I do want to have a little group going on, and just best of luck for myself because it's definitely something I'll be studying a lot in the next year for sure because they're very different. As far as the breeding and the incubation goes, because you don't see them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that'd be cool if I could produce a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the little goal right now that I have going on, to get a good little group going on and, hopefully have some success with them. And if they're not, it's fine, I'll keep them as pets, they're still very, very cool animals. Geckos to have.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. My fuscus, she's a little wild, she's a little feisty, I posted her the other day and she's like a meanie all the time. She will be hissing. The Harwiki, she got a little intimidated because I think it was because of the phone. You know, she's not usually like that. When I pick her up, she's usually pretty calm. You know, but that day she was just like not having it. So she was very hissy that day. But I mean, they're for the most part they're very cool, very interesting, very different to what your regular Eulephrus macularis leopard gecko goes. You know, definitely a different body type. You know, head type. The structure is very different. You know, so that's been very very cool to watch them. You know, develop and all that. And just learn, try to like learn as much as I can from them. And once I get them in nice little displays, like actual tank displays, I'll be way better to study them a little bit more. Because right now they're just in my rack system, but hoping to get them in some nice little displays in a couple months.
Yeah.
Before if I'm gonna be able to breed them, because I kind of want to do that instead of the racks. But I mean, we'll see. Because I know some people have had the opposite, where they have success into the rack system way than the display way. So it's another thing that to play around with, to see where it goes and where do I land in the whole situation with that.
Yeah.
But that's still the wild types that I have here, the Eulephrus species. But I mean, hopefully I'll continue to acquire a bit more, getting that pair of Afghanagus and Fasciolatus, and then hopefully branch off to some Montanus or some of the other Eulephrus.
Yeah. I think as far as like the subspecies go, as far as like popularity wise, I would have to say like all the macularis stuff is definitely probably the most popular. And like I feel like hard wiki is going to become, or is kind of the most popular as far as like the really far out there ones.
Yeah, because I mean, Harwikis, they're very cool. I mean, they're very different. A lot of people, and I post this a lot. A lot of people just like they think they're fat tails. Like, oh, you breed fat tails. Like, no, it's not a leopard gecko, but it's a Eulephrus. It's kind of like I'll say like a cousin, because they don't know Eulephrus Harwiki. It's like, oh, like a cousin of the leopard gecko. If you were to put it in that way, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're always getting mistaken, at least for my part, that they're fat tails.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and then you'll get like people thinking that the Fuscus too are also the fat tails. They're like,
yeah.
What morph is this? Why haven't I seen this?
Yeah. I was like, is that a leopard gecko? I was like, well, yeah, if you want to put it in the term, technically kind of is a leopard gecko, but it's not an actual leopard gecko.
Yeah.
And then you have the big guys, the Angry Manus.
The Angry Manu. More like
I have some, but I don't have the space for it or the setup for it yet. Because I mean, those definitely need some more roomy racks.
Yeah, and
you can't keep those in those 14 quarts, or you probably get away with the 24 quarts. But I mean, that might be even a little small on that.
Yeah, I'd say like a 16 is good for like a baby, like a little one. But when it gets big, you're going to need something big for it. Because, like, I was checking out some pictures of them. This thing's eating a mouse, and I'm like, that's like a cockroach for it. And I'm like, oh, man. They're big.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, that's also something I hope to acquire, And all this is just like, I mean, the Afghanicus and the Fasciolatus, it's just something that I need, because that's what I have already in my lineages. So it's something like to just refresh it. So I mean, that's definitely something that I needed to have here, because I just wanted to throw back into the gene pool. But I mean, like the Harwiki and the Fuscus, that's something that I always wanted to work with. So I mean, that's something that slowly started my growth on that little group going, establishing that little group going. So same thing with the Angry Manus, eventually I'm going to get a little group going, But for me, it's always been like, okay, I'm going to pace myself, not grow too fast, not overproduce and stuff like that, keep it in a nice pace where I can handle it. Because, I mean, this is not my full-time job, this is my hobby still, even though sometimes it feels like a full-time job when it's like the peak of the breeding season, egg laying season, hatching, and all that combines, it feels like a full-time job. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still my hobby, my passion, what I love to do. I can't overwhelm myself as well. I have to work with the time I have, because then personal life gets in the way, and other things that you want to do. So I mean, you always want to keep yourself in mind on that, because I mean, you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and then next year you're just getting burned out, and I want to do it no more.
Yeah. Well, George, I think let's do the closing now. So for the closing, George, do you want to say any last words?
Just I mean, for those who have been following me, I mean, I appreciate the support, the followers, um, the comments, I get all the time, of the work that I do, and that's another little fuel that adds to, my breeding and stuff like that, to the passion of the hobby, and for me, it's always going to be, the love for it. So I mean, what I'm producing is what I love to do, or what I love to produce, and that's always going to be a little bit of what my mind focus and mind that I do, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you for being on the first session. It's really awesome and really great. And
No, definitely. I mean, I was a little shy at first. When we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and I was a little shy about it. And I mean, as a in person, I'm a little more open. I'm not too introverted, but I mean, I'm a little more open. But when it was like, like a little podcast phone, I was like, kind of like, I don't know.
yeah.
But I mean, definitely had a good time today, and hopefully, we can get some cool pointers to those who are listening to, or in my establishment at least, how I started with the whole hobby and the leopard geckos, and how it's still from when I started, just the love for it and just producing these great looking pets, and very simple to keep.
Awesome. Well, I'll thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you guys later. Bye.